What's up guys, it's Rowan here from Smart TV. And one of the things that more and more students are starting to explore during high school is starting their own business, right? Becoming entrepreneurial and using that as a pathway, to build skills, to explore passions and hobbies, but also to use it as something to provide leverage and differentiation when you go for early entry scholarship, co-op and cadetship applications. Now in today's video, I'm going to be interviewing and discussing how to actually balance the challenges of being entrepreneurial and running a business while doing your HSC with a student, Tom, who did exactly that, who managed throughout his year 11 and 12 journey multiple entrepreneurial projects while still working towards getting into his goal degree at university. So welcome, Tom.
Hey Rowan. Good to see you.
Just before we dive into the entrepreneurial stuff, I just want to start with the position that you are going to university, right? So, yes, you've got a strong entrepreneurial drive, but you have realised that university is something that can support and help that. What will you be studying at university?
A Bachelor of Commerce and a Bachelor of Arts, specialising in entrepreneurship and a music major.
At which university? Macquarie. Awesome. So you've got this university pathway that's planned. So and that was your dream course?
Yeah.
So you got there, but what you did navigate to get there was the balancing act of running some entrepreneurial projects and ventures while doing this thing called the HSC, which is no mean task, right? And so I find that most students who are slightly entrepreneurial actually don't pursue their entrepreneurial interests during high school for fear that it will prevent them getting into their dream course. But I think you're a testament to show, well, look, actually, if you're strategic about things, you can. So what I'd love to hear as an initial kickoff is, what were some of the entrepreneurial projects that you were running during years 11 and 12, if you feel comfortable sharing?
Well, I ran a couple that went well. They were very confidential and stuff, and now I'm starting them up again, which is great. But the main one that worked pretty well, it was in kind of an overseas company. It was basically a custom jeans company, right? And it would be, you basically send in your design over this online database and you send it through, and then in Vietnam and China there are tailors that design your jeans, and then I send it through and ship it to you. And that was the idea. I started it, I ran it for a bit, and then I discontinued it, and now I'm starting it up again, right? But instead of running the business throughout school, right, because that would have been hectic, right? Like you would have never slept. So instead of running it, I established it. So I started the app, I designed the program, I spoke to the tailors, I went to Vietnam and I spoke to the other tailor there and met all these people and got everything going, right? I got the investors, got the contacts, got the profit margins going. And that is what you should be doing in school, I think, rather than trying to start a business as quick as possible, get everything done. Because if you don't plan, it's not going to work.
So awesome. So what I'm hearing here, which is really cool, is what you did was set up all the infrastructure required to run the business, test it, right? So it wasn't like I'm going to do all of this and then at the end of year 12 start it and then discover that it's not going to work. Like you put it in place, you did the groundwork, you tested it to get validation that yes, this is going to work, people want this. And then rather than run it, because operating a business is a very time consuming task, you went, cool, everything's ready to go. I'm going to hit pause now. I'm going to then get through the stuff I have to do for HSC. And then I'm going to turn it back on post HSC when I can actually have the time to run it and operate it.
That's it.
Which is really awesome. Now, how did you come across the idea for this custom jeans, right? Which is really cool.
Well, I was just sitting there in my room and I realized I don't have jeans, so
Scratching an itch.
Yeah, and I had jeans, but they weren't like the ultimate ones, so I cut them up, and that's where the idea came from. But that's obviously not everyone's gonna go start a jeans business, right? What I had was a book, and in that book could only be business ideas, right? And I would write in it all the time. I would brainstorm whatever came in my head. And then instead of going around and just kind of, for example, in the food court, going for food, right? I like sushi, going for sushi. I would think, how are they making it? How are they operating it? Where's the money going? How is what I put into the business affecting their business? And I would just think how and why instead of what is.
So what's going on here? Because what we're talking about is really like idea generation. I think so people watching this might not yet be running a business. They might be in high school and wanting to possibly come up with something. And so what you've given them is two, I think, really powerful suggestions on how they can do it. The first is, a lot of entrepreneurs and writers talk about the idea of an idea journal, right? Like building your idea muscle. And it sounds like you did that, every time you got an idea, you were writing it. And it sounds like you were then supporting that by essentially doing business breakdowns on local businesses. You'd walk in and be like, cool, like how do these guys make money? All right, they charge that's the inputs. Okay, that's the profit at the end of it. This is how, me spending this influences it. And through that helped, I'm assuming, your idea generation, because you'd start seeing problems and opportunities and challenges. So that's really amazing. You use this to start building a sort of library of ideas that you could possibly go down. Right. You've then got the next challenging step where you pick one of them, which is the jeans, right? This custom jeans business. How do you then go and find, like, the tailors in Vietnam? How do you set the business up? How do you build the app? How do you do the branding? Like, for a lot of people, that's overwhelming, right? So how did you navigate the overwhelm of all of those things that you were going to need to do to set up the business?
Well, first, if I could suggest, if my old self came up to me right now and I want to say one thing, definitely suggest a calendar, online calendar somewhere, right? But one that works. And in that calendar, you don't just put work here, work there. You put everything. So I had brush my teeth, breakfast, workout, business, school, right? Just fill it, right? But stick to it. If you don't stick to it, what's the point?
And so the first thing you had is dedicated times for business. So it was like, cool, I've got my study, I've got my, work, I'm IGA or wherever, but then because this is important to me, I'm going to have blocked out times in my calendar where I'm going to work on the business. So in essence, that's how you started balancing the commitment of HSC and your entrepreneurial projects. Then you're in these blocks of time, right? It still would have been overwhelming to go, well, where do I start? Right, how do I source the jeans? How do I source the tailors? How do I design the logo and the brand? And how did you approach all of those tasks in those blocks of time?
Well, one, don't let distractions happen. So I'd had a note on my door said, don't come in, don't talk to me, all good, love you, but don't speak to me, right? And on my computer, for example, everything was blocked, everything would be off my desk, it would just be the laptop and the paper, and I would just go on the internet and I would just research. So Fiverr, freelance websites, stuff like that, and I would look for freelance tailors or freelance designers looking for work, and I would work for those, and I would find them, contact them and stuff like that. But that whole time block, if you go out of it and you start going on YouTube or playing Xbox or whatever it is, you can't get it done. So you have to make sacrifices as an entrepreneur. Like, so I stopped playing Xbox. Like, I used to play heaps and I stopped. I started working out a lot more. I started eating better. Like, that's a sacrifice, right? I tried to stop spending money, didn't work, right? But I tried, and you just got to keep stopping things, right? You got to make sacrifices because ultimately you want success. If you're an entrepreneur, you don't settle for mediocre. You want success.
Awesome. So you've got that. Now, did you end up creating a bit of a plan for this to get, because obviously you weren't going to operate it. You were just going to set it up. You were going to test it. So did you create a bit of a plan which was like, okay, by the end of this month, I want to have this and this done. By the end of next month, I'm going to have, the product built. By the end of the next month, I'm going to have tested it. Is that how you sort of planned so that you could take advantage of the time blocks? Or yeah?
It was more, for me, previously, it was more based on money. So it was like, by the end of this month, I'm going to be able to afford this. By the end of this month, I'm going to be able to afford this. Now, like today, it's based on, by the end of this month, I'm going to have contact with a tailor, right? It's more smaller jobs, but more of them. So instead of having one kind of goal, which was just like, for example, like, I'm not saying I wanted it, although it would be nice, a Lamborghini, right? Just saying like, by the end of 3 months, I'm going to have a Lamborghini, right? Very high stakes, right? Never going to happen, right? Maybe, but never, right? But instead of having that, such a big goal, I would have lots of small goals. So I'd have like, reach $2,000 profit, right? Have no liabilities. Have a business idea by the end of the month. Start the business idea.
So you'd set little goals. Yeah. So in essence, what I'm hearing here is we've got regular sort of idea generation. We've then got set on an idea, then setting time blocks out in your week so that you can balance it with the other commitments, and then setting some goals for each sort of month or so, little mini achievable goals that you could work towards to keep on progressing the idea rather than letting it stand still and, really not really get any momentum.
Yeah. Workflow, that's the big thing.
Brilliant. So then, what was the biggest challenge did you find in starting to do all the setup for your business?
Balancing friends, that was a huge thing for me. Like, every day, like there wasn't a day that went past where I felt like I wasn't spending enough time with friends and family. I lost friends because of that. I gained friends because of that as well. But the worst thing was that I would see all my friends hanging out, I'd see them all going out, and I did my best to go out with them as many times as I could. But when I had to work, I had to work. I'm not saying that business was more important than friendship, right? I never said that. But it was my dream. I had to follow my dreams, right?
So it sounds like what I'm hearing is run it as a side project.
Yeah.
Don't operate it, but set it up.
Yeah.
Right, and if you do that, you can balance it with friends and with HSC.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, and then that's sort of the optimal outcome because you're learning entrepreneurial skills.
Yeah.
You're preparing yourself for when you finish school for the next sort of stage of your life, but you're also maximizing opportunities. Now, as a final thing, as we start to sort of wrap up this chat, I think you were really strategic because ultimately, you know, by focusing on the entrepreneurial project, you did have less time to study, right? I think, and I don't think it was just even less time. I think just personality-wise, my feeling is perhaps, you know, you'd get into like a tunnel of like, I want to really research this and like find this tailor, and like 5 hours later.
Yeah. Discipline, that's the big thing. I had many restless nights because I was working on that. But you got to stay focused. That's the huge thing. So you say, I want the goal, but I also need to go to bed at 9:40, right? I also need to go to bed at 10. So just keep it in, do it. And
ultimately, I think that the strategy that comes into all of this is that you were really strategic in applying for early entry. So ultimately it was like, cool, I'm going to keep this project going and I'm going to be entrepreneur, I'm going to pursue these projects. And so that if it does impact my ATAR, I don't want to still be then in a position where I don't get into my dream course. So you were very strategic in the sense of, cool, I'm going to take on more extracurricular, like my entrepreneurial projects, you know, like some of the other things you're doing with cadets and work and so forth. And I'm going to really systematically apply for early entry so that I can keep on doing these projects and still get into my dream course regardless of my ATAR. Which, I mean, in the end, how many early entries did you receive in terms of offers? Three. And one of them was to your dream course, which was, just so we can hit it again, it was arts with a major in entrepreneurial and entrepreneurism and music, which is awesome. So in other words, you were able to get the degree, but by being really strategic, which is do the extracurricular, do the entrepreneurial project, apply for early entry, and end outcome is you've got the best of both, right? You've got the entrepreneurial projects, the operations set up, your business is ready to go, and you've also gotten the degree.
And don't give a damn what someone thinks about you. Like, you can't be an entrepreneur without someone hating on it, right? You can't do your thing without someone saying it's never going to work. So just focus on yourself, do you.
And I imagine that's probably particularly the case as a high school student. I mean, did you find people were telling you like, what are you doing? It's high school. Like...
Rumors would go around every day. Like, it was the worst thing for me. And it really impacted my workflow. But in the last term, I was kind of just like, I'm had enough of this, right? Like, I don't care what you think. And as soon as I started saying that, productivity went up, marks went up, everything, just life went up. So just focus on what you're doing. And yeah.
So final question, you know, what advice would you have to another high school student who is, you know, contemplating embarking on an entrepreneurial project while they're in high school in years 10, 11 or 12?
Set it up. Don't do any heavy lifting. So you can't start the heavy lifting without moving your back, right? So get into that kind of moving your back phase, right? So plan it. Exercise, right? Get your body in peak performance and start a routine. So create an effective morning and night routine and stick to that and do that for months and don't stop. Once you've got that in check, as soon as you leave school, your brain will be buzzing. You won't need coffee. And that's what I feel happens to me now. Although I do enjoy a startup espresso, so yeah.
Awesome. So there you have it, guys. We've just heard from Tom some, I think, really strategic advice on how you can navigate years 10, 11 and 12 by still pursuing entrepreneurial projects, and to do so in a way that means that you can also not shut down your opportunities for university by being strategic around early entry application as well. If you have any questions or need any support on your own entrepreneurial journey or building your entrepreneurial skills as you go through years 10, 11 and 12, get in touch with Smart. Our Pathfinder program is designed to support students navigate the transition from high school into life beyond. We help students find success regardless of their ATAR, and that means for those of you that are more entrepreneurial, we're really working at helping you balance your entrepreneurial pursuits while you also maximize options for university study as well. For those of you that are running a business in high school. I get so excited when I hear about, entrepreneurial stories. We'd love to hear what your businesses are that you're working on. Leave it in the comments below. Leave a link. Link is to your business. If there's a way that we can also spread the word about a business that is, run and operated by a high school student, we'd love to support you. Otherwise, guys, all the best as you navigate the journey that is high school and the HSC.